let's take a journey to the ancient world. This time, we're traveling to North Africa, to a place famous for its towering pyramids and powerful pharaohs, ancient Egypt. Today, you'll be learning about one of the most remarkable rulers of this ancient civilization, and for thousands of years, her story had been lost. Her name had been chiseled off walls, and statues of her had been smashed into pieces. Someone had tried to erase her from history. Who was this mysterious ruler, and why did someone want to destroy her legacy? I'll give you a hint. She was one of the most successful pharaohs in Egyptian history. This is the story of Hatshepsut, the unforgettable ruler of Egypt.
Hi, young historians. Welcome to another episode of Anytime Now. I'm Brooke, co-founder of Honest History. In this episode, we're going to explore the life and times of one of the most successful pharaohs of ancient Egypt, Hatshepsut. Her reign during the 15th century BC was a period of peace, prosperity, and cultural growth. We'll explore all of her accomplishments, from her ambitious building projects to her military campaigns in neighboring lands. Hatshepsut was a savvy politician and diplomat, and will uncover fascinating details about how the ancient Egyptians lived, died, including elaborate funeral rituals and the art of mummification. So get ready to journey back in time to the land of the Nile and learn more about the legacy of this amazing pharaoh and how her reign contributed to the development of one of the greatest civilizations in human history. Let's go!
Our story begins around 1470 BCE. Hatshepsut looked out at the sandy earth in front of her. In the far distance, she could see the green banks of the Nile River. Every year, this river flooded the valley, giving the land the water it needed to grow food. She heard the distant sound of cattle and people. Soon, farmers would be planting seeds for barley and emmer. This was her home, and one day it would be her kingdom. Hatshepsut was the daughter of the king of Egypt. Growing up in the royal court, the princess learned about religion, politics, and warfare. Clever and wise, she showed all the signs of becoming a great ruler. But as a little girl, Hatshepsut was told the throne was not for her. Women held important roles in ancient Egypt. Kingship, however, passed from father to son, not father to daughter. When Hatshepsut's father died, her half-brother, Thutmose II, became the ruler of Egypt. Still, Hatshepsut was never far from the throne. In fact, she ended up marrying the new king, Thutmose II. That's right, her half-brother. Now, we might find this strange today, but it wasn't very strange in ancient Egypt. The pharaohs liked to keep the royal bloodline close, and this meant that sometimes members of the royal family married each other. And so, when Thutmose II became king, Hatshepsut became Queen of Egypt. Hatshepsut's brother hadn't been king for very long when the queen received some terrible news. Thutmose II has died. He had been very ill, so the news didn't come as a shock. But still, the king had been so young. Now, there was a big decision to make. Someone needed to take Thutmose II's place. Who would become the new king? The next male in line for the throne was Hatshepsut's nephew and stepson. But he was only a child. A decision was made quickly. Hatshepsut would rule alongside her nephew until he was old enough. And so, Hatshepsut served as a co-regent. A regent is someone who fills in when a king or a queen can't rule. Some regions don't do very much while they're in power, but not Hatshepsut. She wanted to be a true ruler. That way, she would leave behind an even stronger kingdom to her nephew. Eventually, Hatshepsut declared herself Ma'at Kara, which roughly translates to Goddess of Truth. Truth was an important idea in ancient Egypt and very important part of being king. By calling herself Ma'at Kara, Hatshepsut wanted to tell people that she was the rightful ruler of Egypt. And that meant she needed to look the part. In ancient Egypt, a king wore a beard, which was called a pharaonic beard. We often see these in images and statues of pharaohs. Well, Hatshepsut decided that if she was going to be pharaoh, then she needed to dress like one. She styled herself with a beard and wore men's clothing. At first, historians were puzzled by this. When they found images of Hatshepsut, they assumed she was a man. In the 19th century, archaeologists had begun decoding different inscriptions about Hatshepsut. One French scholar was completely stumped. More astonished was I to find, upon reading the inscriptions, that wherever they referred to this bearded king in the usual dress of the pharaohs, nouns and verbs were in the feminine, as though a queen were in question, he said. Archaeologists were confused by these inscriptions. A queen who dressed like a king? They hadn't seen that before. But today we know Hatshepsut did this on purpose. She wanted to show her power. As a pharaoh, Hatshepsut sent armies into battle and explored new lands. One of her most famous achievements was a great expedition to a distant kingdom, a mysterious land called Punt. During this adventure, a fleet of ships sailed across the Red Sea. Traveling east, the soldiers stumbled upon a land that they have never seen before. They returned to Hatshepsut with many goods from their travels. They brought gold, ivory, incense, animal skin, cinnamon, and eye makeup. Hatshepsut wanted this expedition and her reign to be remembered for years to come. Unlike many rulers, she did this by constructing buildings that would stand the test of time. She oversaw the building and many temples and obelisks. Her most famous building was the magnificent temple in El Deir el-Bahari. Today it's considered one of the architectural wonders of ancient Egypt. The temple sits on a very important site surrounded by towering cliffs. The ancient Egyptians believed that the goddess Hathor lived in these hills. Hathor was an important goddess of women and motherhood. According to Egyptian religion, she had nursed and raised every ancient king.
Hi, young historians! Time for a quick break from this amazing story to tell you a bit more about Honest History. If you're enjoying this episode, then you'll love Honest History's magazines and books. Each one is filled with important adventures through the past, like the story of Chen Yisao, a Chinese woman who commanded one of the largest pirate fleets in history, to Mansa Musa from Africa, one of the wealthiest people to ever live. You can pick up a copy or subscribe and receive 3 issues delivered straight to your doorstep every 3 months. Just go to honesthistory.co and use code ANYTIMENOW for a 10% discount. That's honesthistory.co and special promo code ANYTIMENOW. Okay, let's get back to the story.
Close your eyes. Let's imagine you are visiting the temple right now. In front of you, you see grand steps leading up to the entrance. The temple is almost as long as 2.5 football fields. You walk up the stone steps and see many sand-colored pillars. Next to these pillars are statues of the queen herself, Hatshepsut. As you walk inside the temple, you glance all around you. The walls are covered with colorful images of people and places. These wall paintings tell the story of Hatshepsut's reign. On one wall, you see pictures of Egyptian soldiers. Some of them are rowing in a long golden ship. Others are loading gold like trees and animals onto the boat. And there is an inscription on the wall. It reads, "Never were such things brought to any king since the world was." On another wall, you see many more hieroglyphs. This was the form of writing ancient Egyptians used. With hieroglyphs, each picture represents a different word. The hieroglyphs on the wall said something very important. They said that Hatshepsut was the rightful ruler of Egypt. Glancing around at this magnificent temple, it becomes clear Hatshepsut did everything in her power to make sure that she would be remembered, not as a queen, but as a pharaoh. But all her achievements, all her buildings, battles, and expeditions, they were nearly erased from her story. When Hatshepsut died around the age of 50, her nephew/son, Thutmose III, finally became the sole pharaoh. Thutmose III was a strong ruler, like his aunt, and had a successful reign. After many years in power, he made an interesting decision. He ordered his men to destroy any evidence of Hatshepsut's rule. The men went to the temples and monuments that Hatshepsut had built during her reign. They took their tools and chiseled away at the walls to remove her images and smashed her statues. Thutmose III, we believe, even removed her name from the list of kings. When archaeologists uncovered these damaged walls and statues, they were stumped. Why did Hatshepsut names just disappear? Today's historians think that we found the answer. One theory is that Thutmose III destroyed the images because Hatshepsut was a female pharaoh, and that wasn't the usual way they did things. Normally, there was a male king and a female queen. Hatshepsut went against this tradition. Another theory is that Thutmose III wanted people to think he ruled after his father died, not Hatshepsut. But whatever his reason, Thutmose III did his best to rewrite history, and he was almost successful. It took many years for archaeologists to uncover Hatshepsut's story. And slowly but surely, we're learning more and more about her life. But there is one big mystery left. How did Hatshepsut die? And what happened to her body? The ancient Egyptians had a unique way of preserving bodies after people died. You might have heard of mummies. Mummies are an important part of the ancient Egyptian religion. At that time, people believed that they needed their body after they died so that it could join their soul in the afterlife. And to make sure that the bodies did not decay, the ancient Egyptians used a special process to mummify people as well as their favorite pets. You'd be surprised by how many mummified cats and dogs archaeologists have found. To make a mummy, the ancient Egyptian first washed the body in wine and water. Then came the gruesome part. They removed all the organs, even the brain. And they did that by pulling it through the nose. Some of the organs were kept in separate jars, but the heart was left in the body. Next, they treated the body with salt and spices. And finally, the part many people know, they wrapped the bodies in strips of white linen. The ancient Egyptians took great care to preserve the bodies of their rulers. So archaeologists were positive Hatshepsut must have been mummified. But when they found her tomb, her mummy was missing. Did Thutmose III destroy it? For years, no one had an answer. Finally, in 2007, a team of archaeologists stumbled upon a discovery. a mummy of an older woman. Now, here's the crazy thing. The mummy had been discovered years ago by the famous archaeologist Howard Carter. But no one thought it was important. Carter had found the mummy resting on the floor in another person's tomb. Surely, he thought, this couldn't be the mummy of a queen. A queen would be in a tomb with her name on it. And so, he closed the tomb, and no one thought about that mummy again until 2007. That was the year archaeologists began to wonder, could it be the missing mummy of Hatshepsut? Then, in another location, they found a wooden box with Hatshepsut's name on it. And inside the box, they found a tooth. The archaeologists examined the mummy and realized it was also missing a tooth. Could this be the missing puzzle? Some archaeologists were positive the tooth proved they had finally found the mummy of Hatshepsut. However, many still have their doubts. Even with the tooth, it's hard to know for sure. But if this mummy is Hatshepsut, then we can start to understand how she died. Scientists ran many tests and studied the mummy carefully. And now, they believe she died of natural causes. She was very sick at the end of her life and may have died from an infection or a disease. Some scientists have even proposed that she used a skin cream that was very dangerous, and it might have poisoned her. Of course, there are many scholars who doubt that this is Hatshepsut's mummy. So we might still have a mystery on our hands. Archaeologists are continuing to hunt for clues about Hatshepsut's extraordinary life. Who knows? In years to come, they may uncover new evidence that writes a whole new chapter of her story. And it's already quite an incredible story. In 3,000 years of ancient Egyptian history, there were not many female rulers, and most of them did not hold as much power as Hatshepsut. This ancient ruler broke tradition by becoming Egypt's queen and king. And although her story were nearly destroyed, she can rest easy. This ruler of Egypt will be remembered for centuries to come.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Anytime Now. As we wrap up, imagine what it must have been like to live during Hatshepsut's reign, to witness the awe-inspiring monuments she commissioned and the thriving culture that she helped cultivate. Next time you're studying ancient history, or even just riding your bike around, take a moment to think about the rich and complex past that has led us to where we are today. And who knows, maybe you'll even find inspiration in Hatshepsut's legacy to make a difference in your own world. If this is your first time listening to our show, be sure to check out some of our previous episodes for more fascinating stories from history. And if you want to learn more about African history, check out issue 13 of Honest History magazine for an incredible story about Mansa Musa, the richest man to ever live. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. This episode was hosted by Sam Taha and written by Heidi Coburn. Production was led by Randall Lawrence. To learn more about this episode, including more about the host, visit us at honesthistory.co and follow along for updates on social media at Honest History.
When you think about history, are there lots of old guys wearing wigs and stockings? When you think about history, is Napoleon really short? And folks have wooden teeth. Do you know that history can be the most incredible, amazing stories for you and me? Sit back and listen to a story right now. It's honest, it's fun, and it's sure to